to this special live coverage here on Headlines today from outside the White House, where Prime Minister Narendra Modi and US President Barack Obama are engaged in a dialogue. What we are being told is that there will be a joint statement that will only re-emphasize some of the main points that were made in that joint editorial today in the Washington Post. So clearly the relationship now, once again, it appears on a strong footing despite the irritants, both sides determined to take the partnership forward. How is India seeing it, and how are Indian politicians seeing it? I want to get quick reactions because joining me from New Delhi is G.V. Narasimha Rao of the BJP. I'm also joined by Sanjay Jha of the Congress. Also joining me, Veena Sikri, former diplomat, and Mohammad Salim of the left. So I want to get quick reactions from you. Starting with you first, there's Sanjay Jha. Are you going to accept that what Narendra Modi has done only confirms that, unlike what you thought, he is someone who appreciates the need for continuity? He's not trying to recast the Indo-US relationship. He's taking the relationship to a new level if possible. So to that extent, have you underestimated Narendra Modi, the foreign minister, diplomat, prime minister?
Well, Rajdeep, I think I'm glad you actually have answered the question yourself. That when it comes to a sensitive issue like foreign policy, especially when you're dealing with countries like China and the United States, it is important to have a continuity. Just because you have a change in government and you have, the dynamics haven't really changed. You don't really alter your entire outlook towards, your relationship with the country you're dealing with. So end of day, whether it's going to be about, looking at counter-terrorism, joint operation.
But do you accept you underestimated Modi? The limited point. Sorry, Sanjay.
Yeah, my voice is echoing, but go ahead, Rajdeep.
Did you underestimate Narendra Modi's ability to come to America and build this relationship? Did you underestimate? Have we underestimated Mr. Modi? Has the Congress party underestimated Mr. Modi? A lot of us have been looking at him in the last few days, also through the baggage of the past at times. He was denied a visa by the US authorities for 10 years, but now he seems to have kept that issue completely aside and only focused on the business end of this visit. Do you accept that is a statesman-like way of doing things?
I would tell you that it's very early to make a judgment on whether Mr. Modi is going to make a success of his US visit or not. Because if you go by the flip-flops on Pakistan and China, and I'm sorry to be a wet blanket here on your program because I see a lot of enthusiasm there in New York, at least from the media. But the fact of the matter is diplomacy and international negotiations can never be outclassed by rhetoric and slogans and shibboleth. Ultimately, you need substance, you need content, you need a relationship that moves on tangibles and measurables. Now, whether Mr. Modi's visit here results in a transactional, motivation or something of more strategic convergence, as a term that very often people use, that's for the future. That we'll only get to know once the meeting is over and we see, a future, kind of development of the relationship between the two countries. And I would like to mention that I read the op-ed in the Washington Post. But that's a lot of boilerplate, frankly. It's like natural.
Can I intervene? Mr. Jha, can I intervene?
This is a comfort language usually employed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Veena Sikri, is this purely a transactional relationship between India and the United States?
Not
or is
at
this
all.
Something more? Is this now a relationship that cannot be seen purely as a transactional relationship? Yes, go ahead.
I think that this is now a transformational relationship today. The vision statement, Chale Saath Saath, forward together we go, has really put a reset button on the India-US relationship. And you are seeing 2 or 3 aspects of that statement which set it in the right perspective. A, it's a strategic partnership. It's a partnership of equality. It's a partnership. It's a partnership where both sides have equality and the interests of both sides have been reflected in the statement. For example, I think what has been said on India's membership of UN Security Council, permanent membership, is gone much further than what America has said before. At the same time, there are matters of American interest, like on the business side, and there's a mention of civilian nuclear power as well. And there are 2 aspects to it: prosperity and peace. Prosperity is the economic part, the business part, and certainly all the CEOs who met Prime Minister Modi have put before him what they want in terms of continued economic reforms in India, a process which was stalled for the last several years. So that has been stated for the joint prosperity of both countries. On peace, you have a shared security vision.
I'm sorry. I'm going to intervene because you're using the word "hum saath chale," which seems to have become, as I said, some kind of an anthem as a result of what's come in that vision statement. But in India we've often seen G.V. Narasimha Rao, a lot of false dawns. People say saath chalenge, lekin saathi bhi bichhad jate hain. Something goes wrong and suddenly, you're in an eyeball-to-eyeball confrontation. We saw that 6 months ago between India and United States in the context in the Devyani Khobragade incident in New York.
Yes,
so do you believe that, G.V. Narasimha Rao, that this is another false dawn? Or do you believe genuinely hum saath chalenge, G.V. Narasimha Rao?
I think the Obama administration and President Obama himself have, they have tried to use all the charm at their command to actually reach out to the Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi, and also they have gone out of the way. We have never seen a Prime Minister of this country receiving the kind of reception that Mr. Modi has received. The reasons for this are not for to seek. While our Congress friend might want to say that things have been, what is happening today is diplomacy as usual. What you have seen in the last 2-3 years, the relations between India and the United States have suffered greatly. And today what you are seeing is an effort on the part of Obama administration to impress upon the new Prime Minister, who has the mandate, who has the wherewithal to deliver what it takes to really take this country back on a high growth trajectory. And you have seen how they have seen Mr. Modi in action in Gujarat. They have seen him in 12 years delivering a 10% economic growth.
Right. I take your point that you believe that a majority government has a greater capacity, you believe, to negotiate and strike deals. But Mohammad Salim of the left, let me get one more word from you and a reaction from the left. Do you believe when the Congress and the BJP both say, interestingly, that the US and India are natural allies? Does the left finally concede after all these years that the US and India are indeed natural allies?
No, I don't think. If the Congress and BJP, even if they declare jointly, but how can it be natural? The hype is being created. It was last time also when the UPA 1 and the UPA 2 went farther. So there are so many things which we have promised. But at the end of the day, we see as a nation, as the people of India, what we are going to get. Of course, the United States, because of its policies for the last several years in the West Asia and many parts, they are now in a very peculiar situation. So they do need Indian support and it's more and more engagement. But it depends how we are going to get it. It cannot be natural because we have seen the natural allies of the United States in Saudi Arabia, in other countries in the West Asia, and what happened to them. In fact, the United States managed the show in Iraq for last several years. They have created the elements in Syria. Now they are going to fight. So I don't think that is going to help directly. Of course, business and other investment-related matters that India also needs something, and
Mohammad Salim, I would be surprised if you would give me any other answer.
Naturally.
Right.
That's quite natural.
I think I take your point about hype, and I think this is a point that several people are making. Mohammad Salim of the left says every time a Indian Prime Minister comes, meets the US President, we hype it up. And then, it's like a jilted love affair at the end of the day. Something goes wrong, and then you've got to reset the button. Do you believe that hype is the biggest enemy of a full-blown Indo-US relationship? It's time that we treated ourselves as friends rather than, trying to build up some kind of a special relationship which goes just beyond plain and simple friendship.
I think hype can be an enemy of doing the right things. Hype is necessary sometimes. It excites people. Nothing wrong with it. But I think I repeat again that we have to understand that it is not a magic. It's not going to happen overnight. We should not set expectations so sky high But fundamentally, we as Indians, my message to my own people is, we need to understand our role in this process. Mr. Modi is a leader. He's leading us. We need to follow him, but we also need to understand responsibility of changing ourselves, changing the governance in India, changing our bureaucratic mindset, and most importantly, changing the mindset that says government is my bab. Government cannot provide for everything that we want. We have to work ourselves. We have to rely on our initiative. Look at Indians here. They don't rely on government. 10 CEOs that met Modi in New York, 2 of them were Indians. If you look at the business schools, many of the deans are Indians. So I think we can make it happen, but we have to get out of this mindset that the government will deliver for me. It cannot.
You know, let me just then put one final point to you, Professor Nuruddin, that there's a sense, and it's been expressed by some of the panelists there in Delhi, that Mr. Modi heads a majority government. Mr. Modi is someone who has come with the promise of Achhe Din Aayenge. Therefore, he also has set expectations very high. Is that the worry? You know, here we in the media set expectations high. Modi himself has set expectations very high. And therefore, maybe the time has come to just step back a bit and look at realism. All the points that Professor Sood makes aren't going to change overnight. The Indian bureaucracy is not going to change overnight. Red tapeism isn't going to end overnight. The laws are not going to change overnight. So are we expecting too much to suddenly believe that India and America will take their relationship to a new level? It's not going to happen overnight, is it?
It isn't. I mean, Kennedy and Nehru had a famously good relationship on a personal level. They had a deep respect for each other. That's 50 years ago now. That deep relationship, of course, ran aground on all the kinds of issues that have continued to affect this relationship. You've asked a lot about, and you've commented a lot on the impatience of the American people. I think the real danger here is the impatience of the Indian people. We're a young country. The demographic dividend that Prime Minister Modi remarked about can also be something that he has to manage now as young Indians expect change. They see in him a leader who they feel has never occurred. You've interviewed many young people over here who see this as a transformational figure. President Obama was seen as a transformational figure himself, and 6 years later has been embattled in many ways. He's achieved a great deal, but change comes slowly. It requires a lot of hard work on a daily basis, and it requires that his citizens understand that that change will come slowly. If in a year India's growth rates have not gone back to 8%, will Prime Minister Modi be allowed to continue doing the hard work of governing, even though those immediate results have not been delivered? That's a question that only we can answer, and my hope is that we give him the time to do what is necessary.
Let me just take that to my panel in New Delhi. Veena Sikri, do you believe we set expectations too high, too much of hype? We need to taper the hype down a bit?
No, I think it's good to have a vision which gives you a certain objective, a clear objective to be reached. But the key is implementation, and that hard work of implementation will start when Prime Minister Modi returns. He's now completed his visit to Japan, and Chinese president has been in India. So there is a process of economic reforms, of meeting the expectations of the Indian American community, of the CEOs of CEOs of American business, and President Obama. And this package of economic reforms, of maybe some special provisions.
But is it going to change overnight, ma'am?
No, I think...
Is it going to change overnight?
I think one can see, let's say, the budget of February 2015. Let's put that as a target. So maybe by that time, by the next budget, you will have a situation where the government of Narendra Modi will be able to put together a package of reforms and get it through the budget, and that will set in motion the implementation and attract all the projects that Prime Minister Modi has discussed individually with CEOs, and that are reflected in his in this joint document. And I think that the word natural allies that you used in your earlier when you were speaking is not there actually in the document. I don't think the word allies fits what India and America are putting together. They're putting together a partnership based on mutual benefit and trust and equality.
Partnership.
Yes, and that partnership will work because if there's trust and mutual benefit and equality, then both sides have a commitment to make it work.
But you know, Mr. Narasimha Rao, as Veena Sikri says, till the budget, that's when we are going to wait for reforms to take place. If reforms don't take place, then American investors who today are looking forward to building a new relationship with India, to building a new relationship with the Indian government, may just look to Indonesia, Philippines, look to other parts of the world. So there's a window of about 6 months. Would you agree, Narasimha Rao, that this honeymoon will not be endless? Every honeymoon comes to an end.
I think if you recall what Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi said at the end of 1 month of his government, he said the media has denied me a honeymoon period. So I don't think this government was enjoying any kind of a honeymoon. He has been into the first day of his job. I think he began to really move towards the goals that he had set for his government.
Come on, Narasimha Rao. This government has had a lovely honeymoon. Please don't say that Narendra Modi has not had a honeymoon.
No, come on. No, I'm only quoting in the words of the Prime Minister. After 30 days, look at the kind of. Okay, so if you think that way, I don't really need to differ with you on this. But to achieve the goals that we have set for the government, I think it cannot happen overnight. Nobody is promising 8% growth in 6 months, and it will take a matter of maybe a couple of years. But for that, the activity has to begin in right earnest. And the Prime Minister and his entire team of government have been on the job from day one. And you have already seen a lot of economic indices showing improvement month after month. And the kind of spade work that is being done in the last 3 months will deliver results in a matter of year or 2 years. And things cannot happen overnight. And people also don't have such unrealistic expectations. They are very reasonable. People are very reasonable. They know change will come slowly but steadily, but will surely come.
Right. Okay, let me bring in Sanjay Jha. Sanjay Jha, let's look at the Prime Minister's foreign minister. As a de facto foreign minister, if I can call him that. On day one of his swearing in, he got all the SAARC leaders to his swearing in. Then he goes to Japan. Highly successful visit, goes to the neighborhood, Nepal, another successful visit, Nepal and Bhutan, reaches out to China, high-level meeting there, and now you've had this summit which has taken place with Barack Obama. So in about 120 days, Prime Minister Modi has shown that he can get, he's ready to push ahead with foreign policy. Are you willing to give him a good grade at least for his foreign policy initiatives, Mr. Jha?
Rajdeep, frankly, there are two sides to a coin. Well, yes, there is a perceptible energy in Mr. Modi visiting different countries and engaging with them. I don't think anybody would like to criticize him for that. But the fact is that, a foreign policy with any country, whether it's a small country like Nepal or a giant superpower like the United States, it has to be calibrated. It has to be considered. I mean, you've got to consider a lot of geopolitical realities, trade and commerce, even the historical baggage. So I would say that, maybe let's not try and, kind of once again judge Mr. Modi by the optics. End of day, there is a lot of feel good and rhetoric when these meetings happen. Mr. Obama is an outgoing president another year. Mr. Modi is an incoming prime minister. The stakes are different in all political relationships. I think it will be unfair to judge Mr. Modi on foreign policy today. I wouldn't like to rush into that on behalf of my party. But I do believe that he's raised expectations sky high, by a lot of these slogans and Make in India and Chalo Saath Saath, etc. But you got to recognize there are hurdles. There are very critical hurdles. And one of them is Pakistan. Just to add to the point, that today US exercises tremendous influence on Pakistan, diplomatically, politically, funding. And if India is not able to leverage its relationship with the US to make sure that Pakistan doesn't become more belligerent and bellicose post the US withdrawal from Afghanistan, I think this entire trip may have just been a lot of water down the drain.
Okay, we've just lost that link with Rajdeep. We're going to get back to that, but I'm just jumping in for him. Veena Sikri, you wanted to respond?
Yes, I wanted to respond. I wanted to say that I think that in the discussions which are right now underway in the White House between Prime Minister Modi and President Obama, this very subject of counter-terrorism would have figured in a big way. It is there in the document, in the vision statement, Chale Saath Saath. It has been there in each of Prime Minister Modi's statements from every forum, in the Council on Foreign Relations and even in Madison Square Garden, and in every occasion he's spoken about the dangers of terrorism. And of course, there is a parallel interest in America on this the subject right today because of the situation in Iraq and the Islamic State coming up. So there is a great deal of explaining, because, you know, the Islamic State doesn't stop at the Pakistan border. You have today so many reports that recruitment for the Islamic State is going on from Pakistan. So certainly this would have figured in the talks. And I think that today the situation is very ripe for President Obama and the American public and State Department to understand India's concerns on this and to take action on it. Already Prime Minister Modi has talked about Afghanistan and that the US should not leave Afghanistan in a hurry, and they should, because of not creating a similar situation to what has happened in Iraq. So I think this is very much on the agenda of Prime Minister Modi, and there is going to be definitely some work on this in a forward movement on this, which is going to be in India's interest. Counterterrorism is very, very high on Prime Minister Modi's agenda.
All right.